Hello and welcome to Life Negotiations, where I'm interviewing fascinating people about negotiations. My name is Marwan Mery and welcome. My first guest here is Marwan Mery. Marwan Mery is a professional negotiator, and I'm excited about this show because he was the one who trained me in 2013. He was the one who showed me that this is actually a real job. You can actually earn money by being a professional negotiator. And he's the one who back then planted a seed of interest of me thinking, I would like to do what you do. So here we are several years later, both of us being professional negotiators. So it all started thanks to him, and I'm excited to ask him a lot of questions to add value to you and your negotiations. Welcome. Marwan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me as well.
So you are a professional negotiator since many, many years now, and you do like fascinating negotiations like hostage negotiations and diplomatic and commercial and any type of high-stake negotiations, right? You're also the CEO of ADN Group, the international negotiation agency where we collaborate together. Could you tell us please more about yourself in a nutshell? What do you do? And my first question right away is, why do you do it?
Right, okay, so as you said I'm a professional negotiator. If you want to know a bit more about myself, I'm 45 now, and I love what I do. What I particularly like in my job is that I cover lots of different fields when I do negotiate, because I could work with the UN on diplomatic issues. I can work on kidnapping and ransom as well, extortions, where we have life and death stakes, basically. And of course, my business is mainly based on business negotiation and social conflicts as well, because I'm French.
Yep.
And we love social conflicts in France as well, unfortunately. What is maybe different from other jobs is that I spend 50% of my time in the field, right? And I run or assist at least 50 negotiations per year, which is a lot, too much sometimes, but you have to accept that in your job. And the rest of my time is dedicated to transmitting knowledge through conferences, trainings, as you said it, and teaching in business schools. So why do I do this job is because, if I have to be really honest with me and with you, because I've got this feeling of being useful for others. And so yes, sometimes people ask me, but why do you take so many risks for people you don't know, right? I do think that I've got this feeling of being useful, because if I do not have this feeling, I might lose interest in things. So that's why this job, that's what brings this job to me. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And you are being useful and you're adding value, and you actually saved a lot of people's lives, right?
Yes.
You just told me how many suicide negotiations you have.
170 so far. Yes,
and everybody's
exactly.
still alive.
Yes, so far, yeah, exactly. And the funny thing, if I may say so, is that last year, I saved five times the life of a single person. He tried to commit suicide 5 times,
Oh, wow.
But I never had any news from him afterwards, but I suppose it's fine. But yes, you never know in this job, yeah. But critical negotiations is only 10 to 20% of my time. Most of my negotiations are business,
commercial negotiations, yeah. And that is why we're here today. We're gonna have an event in an hour with the CEOs of here in Dubai, where we are right now, and you're gonna share with them 5 secrets of professionals of how you face crisis and commercial negotiations that might become diplomatic or quite difficult and high stakes. So could you share with us, please, one of those secrets that you will be sharing with them?
Yeah, with pleasure. Well, because it's you, otherwise I would have done that.
And for the audience.
Yeah, right, okay. One thing that, we do learn a lot from our negotiations, right? Because we have to be really humble, because you learn on each and every negotiation. But there's one thing, it's like a common denominator, and each and every negotiation I can run and assist, is that you really have to make a difference between position, objective, and stakes. So when you do enter a negotiation, what you have to keep in mind is, what is the position posted by the opposing party, right? What are they trying to reach, right? What they can hope for, meaning it's the objective. and what are the needs they're trying to satisfy. Basically something they will never compromise on, never ever, right? And that is the stake, right? And in all of the negotiation I had to carry out, right, the position has nothing to do with the stake, never ever. Never ever.
Amazing.
And you can have a kidnapping ransom with a position posted money, for example, $100,000, otherwise they kill the hostage, or you can have social conflict, 5% increase, otherwise we go on strike, right? You can have a business negotiation where they will demand and not request a 10% rebate on the sales conditions, otherwise they will break the contract, right? Or diplomatic issues where they say, okay, we'd like you to adopt this measure, otherwise those are the sanctions we might produce. And in all those different cases, this position posted has nothing to do with the stake. And our job as a negotiator is to go beyond the position posted, just to get to understand that. Because why? And that is the secret, is that if we might offer a solution in a negotiation, it's always on the stake, never on the position. Otherwise, it's going to be too costly for you, because you're going to pay twice, on the position and on the stake.
Plus, you can satisfy the position and still not satisfy the person, because that wasn't what it was really at stake.
Exactly, especially if the stake is personal. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the position is what somebody says they want.
Yes.
The objective is what they rationally think they can obtain.
Yeah, exactly.
And the stake is like the non-negotiable.
Yeah, exactly.
What has to be satisfied.
Yes, exactly.
And that's never the same.
It's never the same.
Amazing.
Yes, and the thing is, if I can give you a piece of secret a bit, is that people mistake most of the time objective and stakes. And it's natural, because you might think it's the same thing. No, but the thing is, as you said it properly, is that the objective is quite negotiable. They will try to get it, but if they do not get it, right, they might accept it to revise downwards, right, their objective, as long as they manage to satisfy their stake. And that's the thing. And if you mistake both, the risk is that you might offer a solution on an objective, and it has nothing to do with the negotiation, because the stake, it is what you have to satisfy. Yes, exactly.
And why do you think that is? Why don't people just say, okay, you know, this is what I need? Do they?
Yeah, a lot of reason. Sometimes they're not aware of their own stakes, right?
Exactly.
Because you know that the lucidity might be blurred by emotions, right? Especially when stakes are really important. The second thing is, most of the time people consider that they will be more vulnerable, right? Yes, because they say, okay, if I put my stake on the table, people might manipulate me, or they use that, okay? And sometimes that's what you have, for example, among buyers in retail. You know, those are tough negotiations when you negotiate, I'd say, against buyers in retail, is that they hide, right, deliberately the stake, so that they can get multiple gains, right? For example, they will post only their position, you will try to find a solution on the position, then they will post the objective, and then they will pay their stake, and you will pay 3 times. Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay, so they use it as a strategy as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now you've carried out obviously a lot of negotiations with high stakes, and where you can't simply make a mistake, because that could literally be somebody's life we're talking about. Have you ever had a situation, and obviously the most important thing of an important negotiation is preparation, right? We spend most of our time preparing. Have you ever had a situation where the preparation went well, you really invested your time, you prepare properly, you go in, and then you're like, okay, we're kind of ready for everything, and then it doesn't happen at all as you prepared or as you hoped for? And can you share one of those things?
Yeah, and it all falls apart. Exactly. Yes, I had one in mind. It happened a couple of years ago. It was in an Eastern European country, right? And we prepared this negotiation for 26 hours. It's not a joke. It was a high stakes situation. First of all, the thing is that I could not carry out this negotiation directly. Why not? Because I didn't speak that language, right? So basically we had to prepare in English. And unfortunately, I could not run this negotiation in English because the opposing party didn't speak English. They were only speaking the local tongue, right? So basically I had to assist those people, and those people, unfortunately, that was the management team, they were not really efficient negotiators, if I may say so. And so I prepared with them for 26 hours, right? And at the end, they were really bored. Yes, because you can imagine 26 hours, and those guys, they used to manage thousands of people. And they say, Marwan, yeah, okay, we're fed up with that. We've understood, it's clear, we know what we have to do. Even if it's not our job, but we think we've understood, right? And when this guy, it was the general manager, he told me that, honestly, I had strong doubts, right, honestly. Because the thing is, most people consider that negotiation is a soft skill, but it's a really hard skill.
Yeah, like you can just improvise being a good negotiator.
Of course, it's just like medicine, it's just like law, economics, and so on and so forth. It's really difficult. Why? Because, and this is a message I'm producing all the time, is that why some people succeed when others fail on the same situation. Those guys, they're not the luckiest guys in the world. They're just good negotiators. So basically they say, okay, see if we have to go back to this situation, to return to that situation, they say, okay, we're ready, okay? So so in the team, 2 negotiators, right, if I may say so, so entered negotiation with the opposing party, and after 10 minutes, right, they returned to me, right, and I was in a room, right, hidden with the other team, other members of the management team, and those 2 guys, when I saw their faces, right, I said, okay, there's something definitely wrong. And I said, so how was it? And they told me, it all failed. And they told me, Marwan, your tricks, it didn't work. And I said, but negotiation is not about tricks, but tell me what happened. And they told me what happened. And I said, but we never said that. We never agreed on that. And they told me, yes, but in the action, we just improvise. And listen what happened. In 10 minutes, they just gave anything away. Anything. So it's 26 of negotiation.
The negotiation was finished?
It was finished. Yeah, because they give it all away for nothing. And so meaning 26 hours of negotiation, of preparation, for nothing. So they didn't know how to handle ultimatum, to restore a balance, an unfavorable balance of power, and to take the upper hand as well, right? And so basically they had to submit. They suffered from the negotiation. And at the end, it was too tricky for them. It was they were emotionally charged. So to release the pressure, right? That's what we do sometimes.
They
give it.
Yeah. 3 days of your life.
Yeah.
So when we talk about good negotiators, then what does it take then to be a good negotiator? What are the soft skills that you need, the hard skills that you need? How do you become a good negotiator?
Right. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think that first of all, you've got to be agile. Why? Because we live in a world that is defined by uncertainty. Yeah, basically you can master your environment. Change, exactly. So you have to be agile, right? If you're too rigid, it might harm you in the negotiation, and it might jeopardize your negotiation.
But agility, can that be trained?
Yeah, that can be trained. Yeah, but of course that can be trained, because once you accept that you cannot master your whole environment, your perception of the environment changes. That's the whole thing. But if you do not enter a negotiation and you consider that you will not enter a negotiation without 100% of the information available, well, you're
never going to go.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, that's the first thing you have to accept. The second thing is we often talk together about the appetite for conflict, right? And that's the thing. Without negotiation, without conflict, there's no negotiation, right? You might sell, you might verbalize an idea, you might say different things, but to negotiate, there must be a conflict. So first of all, you have to accept the conflict. And the good thing is that conflict is good. Yeah. Because a conflict is just the expression of a disagreement, and it's normal that people disagree all the time. So you have to accept conflict, right? And it's not that easy, because especially when conflict is really harsh, right? is really strong. People, they try to, sometimes they yield ground, right? Because they do not feel that comfortable. So you have to have a strong appetite for conflict. The other thing might be stress management, especially when you deal with high-stake situations, right? You have to know how to regulate your own stress, right? Because most of the time, right, you have to stabilize people. They might be emotionally charged. If you can do that on yourself, how you can work on others, right? Then as well, empathy, of course, yes. But empathy, everybody talks about empathy, great thing about empathy, but you can be naturally empathetic, right? But you can develop an empathy as well if not naturally empathetic.
Exactly. I know one excellent negotiator who is not empathetic at all.
Yes, yes.
So then you can be empathetic on the negotiation table to get things done without it necessarily being
exactly. So empathy is and that's what is really important, is that people consider that being empathetic is to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and that's not empathy. This is what we call external conscious, right? External conscious is when you try to understand the motivations, right, the drivers of how people react and tend to think. But empathy, it's about perceiving the emotions of the opposing party, right, without feeling them, right? And so that is really important to build rapport, right, create a link with the opposing party as well, right? Assertiveness as well, assertiveness, right? How you defend your opinion, right? How you defend your values, right? You maintain your position.
Knowing how to say no.
Yeah, know how to say no. And respecting, right, others' values and others' opinions, right? Because negotiation is not about, good or bad or anything like. We have to transcend that, right? Your values, your arguments, they have no more power than others, right? So it's not about that, but it is important as well, right, to know how to maintain your position, right, and how to say no without even verbalizing it, because when you say no in a negotiation, you might close the negotiation as well.
There are many different ways of saying no.
Yeah, exactly. So those are, there are lots of other elements, of course, listening skills, right? Those are really important elements. And of course, the most important of all is
the hard skills.
The hard skills, your techniques, right? And that cannot be improvised. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And
so
most
you learn, you practice, you develop, you do again.
Exactly. And the best example I give, because I train roughly 1,000 people each year. Yeah. The best example I give when people tell me, but it's a soft skill. I say, all right, okay. So I take one participant in the room, right, and I arrive with a gun. It's a fake one. And I'm holding the person like that, and I say, give me $1 million, otherwise I shot her in the head. And then they all freeze, right? And I say, okay, deal with that. And no one can deal with that. And they say, yes, but those are really difficult negotiations that you can improvise yourself on that one. And I say, all right. Meaning that you can improvise yourself on your negotiation?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is exactly the same.
Your commercial negotiation,
exactly.
Your personal negotiation, your marriage negotiation.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't improvise like that.
Yeah, you can improvise. You cannot do that.
No.
And that's the technical part. Those are really the hard skills. And it takes years and years of expertise and experience. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't have that years of expertise and experience, yet we all negotiate every single day. I have many people, when I tell them that I'm a negotiator, they're like, really? I would hate to be a negotiator. How could you like that? I hate negotiations. And the first thing I say is, what is your definition of negotiation? And how do you look at negotiation? Because as you say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That beautiful quote. But still, they're like, no, I don't like negotiation. So what would be your advice or tips for people who don't like to negotiate, yet they have to negotiate? Yeah.
So the tip, I think it's based really on conflict, okay? So when I ask people, why do you do not like to negotiate? And they say, because I hate, most of the time they will say, I hate when people oppose to me. Yeah. And I say, and what happens? I say, I don't feel that comfortable. And I say, all right, so you would feel more comfortable if they would not oppose to you. I say, yes, exactly. So basically, what is difficult for you is the form, right? But the content, you agree that people might disagree. And they say, yes. So basically it's the form. You're not comfortable with the form. And you say, yes, exactly. And when people are aggressive, I just say, oh, I can't deal with that. Right. But still you consider that they might disagree with you. You say, exactly. Right. So basically what is important is to change the perception of the form. I'm going to say that in French. Talleyrand, right? It was a historical figure in France, and he used to say that about negotiation. Toujours transiger sur la forme pour rester maître du fond, right? So basically, that's what we do in a negotiation, right? The form, right? We give it to the other parties, right? To the opposing party. But the content, right? What really matters, right? The core of the negotiation, we keep it for ourselves. It's like in a hostage-taking situation. The hostage taker, he must always have the feeling to control the negotiation environment. On the form, we leave it that to him.
Yeah.
But on the content, the core, we leave nothing to him, right? So when you accept that the form, right, might be different from the content, you see negotiation differently.
Yeah.
So that's why when people say that I don't like to negotiate, I say yes. You accept conflict, but you don't like the form. If you change your perception on the form, right? They're aggressive, but we don't care. Yes, of course they're aggressive, because they have no other alternative.
Plus that gives us info.
Yeah, that gives us info, of course.
Yeah.
So once you consider it's two different things, right, you will be able to master the core of the negotiation.
And maybe it's also because they take things personally.
Yeah,
Can that be
you're
a
right.
reason? That they feel like personally attacked
Yes.
or personally rejected or personally all those things.
Yes, exactly.
And that hurts, of course.
Yeah,
And
because
that's
of the
why
ego.
I don't like conflict.
You're right, yeah, completely right. You're right, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we talked about tips for how to negotiate, about what is important to be a good negotiator, about the different types of negotiations that you do. What do you personally enjoy most? Which type of negotiations?
I'd say suicidal behaviors. Yeah,
Suicidal,
it might be.
right.
Yeah, it might be weird to tell you that, but those are. I like the negotiations where there's a lot of adrenaline. Yes, because I feel useful, as I said it. I don't know.
You're a thrill seeker.
And the thing is, when stakes are really high, right? Especially in suicidal, when you have to deal with suicidal behaviors, right? You know, there's only it's a binary situation. Either it works, or it fails, right?
Yeah, you
there's,
can't.
Yeah, there's no halfway.
There's no halfway.
Yeah, exactly. And most of the negotiation I run are business negotiation, and they can last for months, right, or years, right?
Yeah.
But here, right, after a couple of hours, you have a direct result, and that's what I like, because you have to choose, you know, to choose each and every word, because you know it will have a direct psychological impact on them. And when I negotiate, my favorite part is when I'm face to face with people and I try to take the upper hand, right? And that's what I do. That's what I like here with suicidal behaviors.
Amazing. It's interesting you say
Yeah,
that,
thank
because
you.
when people tell me what is the part that you don't like about negotiation, I'm like, suicide negotiations. I do not want to do many of those. Oh my God, because everything is at stake. As you say,
exactly,
you can't make a mistake.
Yeah.
You don't have a second chance. You can't say, let me sleep over it, come back to you tomorrow. You know, it's right there, right then, and you have to perform and you have to succeed. Yeah, wow.
We're all different. We're all different. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, and then I have one more question, is how do you deal with people who don't want to negotiate with you? Because now, I mean, they can Google your name, they will see you're a negotiator. I want to share something with you. I think I've never told you this, but actually I was having a negotiation a few years ago, and the person I was negotiating with literally told me, I don't want to negotiate with you. I know you've been trained by Marwan Mery.
Really?
He told me that. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to negotiate with me anyway. But I assume I mean, that must have happened to you all the time, right? That people say, I don't want to negotiate with you.
Yeah.
And then how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it happens to me every 2 weeks, if I may say. Yeah,
That
yeah, but not for those reasons that you can imagine. Is that most of the time they do not Google me, right? It's because, you know, I'm just representing a company, right? And I'm not necessarily saying my name, you know, I'm just saying, okay, I'm here to assist the company. And so most people, they're interested only by themselves, which is good for us, of course.
Yeah.
So they will not enlarge, they will not try to get additional information. So you don't have to lie, just don't say your name, right? But most of the time they will tell me, I don't want to negotiate with you, because they don't know me, right? I've been just called in, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time because the negotiations has failed so far. For example, in social conflicts, so the links between the management team and the trade unions are broken, right? So basically,
they don't want to talk to each other.
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. And I'll say, okay, I've been called in. So, but those guys in front of me, they say, I don't want to talk to you. And so that happens to me every 2 weeks. But it's not a problem, because they don't know me, and they might not want to talk to me for lots of different reasons. But when people tell me that, I have different options, right? I can share two with you, right? Not more, because for more, you need a proper training, and it takes a bit of time. But first of all, when people say, I don't want to negotiate with you, right? The first thing I'll do is I'll collect a yes, right? Without them realizing it. So first thing I'm going to say, I'm going to paraphrase or reformulate. Yes, exactly. I say to me, right? Just to me. And I say exactly, right? Exactly is a yes, right? The more yes you collect in a negotiation, right, the more you will build reports, right? Without them realizing that, okay? And then I'm going to tell them, is there a reason for that? There's necessarily a reason.
Yeah.
So basically, they will give me additional information for that. Yes, because blah, 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 blah. And then I'm going to dig up on what they gave me.
Okay, so you
right?
use whatever they give.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sometimes I use a bit of sense of humor as well. So I remember one guy, it was a suicidal behavior, right? And the guy said, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to talk to you. And I said, if you can't talk to me, can you write it down? And the guy smiled. I said, you're a clever guy, but still no. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Yeah, I got a yes, and then I managed to open him up right after an hour. But yeah, there's always to do that, to transcend that, because most of the time they don't want to talk to me. But after five minutes to an hour, right, I open them up, yes.
Because this happens in commercial negotiations
Of
as
course,
well, right? When
of
people
course.
say, I don't want to negotiate, or call your boss. I
Yeah,
don't want
exactly.
to talk to you. Who are you? I want
Yes,
to talk
exactly.
to your boss or whatever.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And the number one thing would be then, first, don't take it personally. It's not about you,
Yeah.
obviously. And then go beyond and
Yeah,
say,
exactly.
okay, then why,
Exactly.
etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And you said something about training, and you are obviously training people, companies, the diplomats of the United Nations, etc., on how to become better negotiators. Now, is this only accessible for companies, or can individuals, could anyone knock on your door and say, hello, can you train me?
Right. The limiting factor is my time, if I may say so, unfortunately, and the time of my team, just like your time as well. So, yes, in 99% of the cases, we train companies, right? Or NGOs, or, as you said, the UN, or governmental agencies, right? Sometimes we do assist around negotiation for individuals, right? But those are really rare cases. It is when stakes are really, really high, okay? But of course, our doors are always open for trainings, because we train ADN Group. It's roughly 3,000 people per year that we train.
Yeah.
Yes, Middle East with you, Europe, Africa, and so on and so forth.
And it's only 3,000 because we only accept to train people in small groups, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, obviously, we can easily go to bar, but we always limit it to small groups, so that that's very individual.
Yeah, so it's really interactive as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and do a lot
the
of
groups
role-play.
groups are limited to 12 people. Yes,
Yeah.
maximum. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I sometimes go to 15, but not more.
Yeah.
And companies ask for it, and I'm like, I really want to speak to each person. I want to see them negotiate.
Exactly.
I want to hear them give an example.
Exactly.
I want to,
Yes,
so that's how
exactly.
we work, and we're not going to change that, right?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you very much, Marwan.
Thank you
This
so
was
much.
amazing. How
Thank
can
you so
people find you, learn more about you?
Yeah.
I mean, you've written like how many books now?
I've written 10 books. Yeah,
Amazing.
10 books so far. Yeah. Most of them are in French, but our latest book, Negotiator, which is the most sold negotiation book in France, has been translated into English, which is a really good thing. So it's called Negotiator, right?
But that is for people who are like really interested, because it's
Yeah,
big, fat, but
yeah.
more than 600
Yeah,
pages.
yeah, 660
It took
pages.
me several months to go through that one.
Yeah, but
that one just came out in English, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's considered now to be the Bible, if I may say so, but basically that's what journalists say now. Yeah. And so, yes, books and our sites, yeah, of course, adngroup.com, yes, adngroup.com.
You'll find everything about Marwan Mery, about the method Pacificats that we use, about the books, about the trainings. You can find everything on adngroup.com. Okay, thank you very much, Marwan.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for watching this episode, and I look forward to bringing you more fascinating negotiators. Thank you.